What is up, guys? Stu here. So this weekend, Guy Ritchie's King Arthur Legend of the Sword hit cinemas in the US. It hit cinemas in the UK a week later, as usual, because just goddamn love getting films later than the US. It's great fun for everyone. But anyway, I got a chance to check this one out early, and let's just talk about this shit. So King Arthur Legend of the Sword is the latest film from Guy Ritchie, the guy behind a bunch of classic British crime films such as Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, as well as some recent ones like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2 with Robert Downey Jr. A lot of fun, those films. I enjoy them all. But admittedly, my expectations for this one were pretty low. I wasn't too excited for it. None of the trailers really did much for me. And also, Charlie Hunnam is doing a really good job of convincing me that he should just not be in films ever. So there's that. So I didn't really have any expectations for this one. Went ahead and saw it anyway, hoping for the best. Because, as I said, I'm a fan of Guy Ritchie's previous work. I just wanted to have a good time with this one. That did not happen. This film is pants. So the film is about, what a shocker, King Arthur, and it's sort of an origin story about that. You know, he's a guy that picks a sword out of the stone, and everyone's like, you did it. You did it, King Arthur. Great job. You got the sword out. I'm paraphrasing there. Not even that much. So as King Arthur in this one, we've got Charlie Hunnam. And you guys know at this point, I'm not a fan of Charlie Hunnam. Let's put it that way. He's alright in films which don't demand too much from him on an acting scale. Films like Pacific Rim. He's fun in that because it's a nice, cheesy, hammy film. I can get on board with it. I hate him in films where he has to actually act. So already got a bit of a problem here, and this one is not really any different there. I honestly fucking hated Charlie Hunnam in this film. He's just one of those actors which I can't quite pin it, but his delivery of basically every line never sells me on anything about his character. Him trying to navigate the comedic side of this character fell flat for me, and him trying to navigate the badass, I'm gonna kick some motherfucking ass throughout this film side of the character, whilst it didn't fall as flat as the comedy side of things, it was still... I just didn't give a shit about him. I don't know why he's still being cast in lead roles. I hope it doesn't continue. But no one else in the film is as obviously terrible as Charlie Hunnam here, which I guess is a good thing, if you want to spin it that way. Although you can't really avoid the fact that you've got a problem if the best thing I can say about the performances in your film is that they aren't Charlie Hunnam. I actually have to say I did enjoy Jude Law in the film. He is a very one-note villain, but he's clearly having a good time with the role. And he is a menacing guy. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll give it props for that. Jude Law is menacing as a villain in this film. I enjoyed watching him on screen when he's on screen, but I think that was also down to the fact that it's Jude Law. And as much as you can try, you can never truly escape the love of Jude Law. But there is also the best, most unintentionally hilarious cameo from David Beckham in the film. He's in it for all of about 30 seconds, 1 minute. And when he pops up, it killed everyone in the audience. It killed me. If anything, watch it for the David Beckham cameo. The guy is fucking hilarious. He goes up to pull out the sword, and then sure enough, David Beckham turns around with his fuck off huge nose on. He's like, you go and pull out the bloody sword out fucking on me, mate. I don't know whether I can actually qualify that as a David Beckham impression, but we'll just move on from that. But how does the direction fare in this one? Because it is a Guy Ritchie film, and if we've learnt anything from the past, it's that he's very capable of doing interesting, stylized pieces, which are often quite witty, quite fun, and quite sharp, and do make for entertaining films for those reasons. So I was interested to see how he'd do with his very obvious style, and with the fantasy genre and King Arthur. We've not really seen him clash with that genre before, so it could have gone many different ways there. And that is why it's all the more frustrating that it ended up going the way of a hot turd slapping the side of a toilet pan. Really, just not fun for anyone, really. All of his kind of trademark Guy Ritchie-isms are apparent here. They are there. It is clearly a Guy Ritchie film, so I guess it's succeeded on that front. But more so than his previous stuff, this one felt so much more forced. It feels more out of place than ever here, in a very, very odd way. So the main kind of Guy Ritchie-ism that is apparent for all of his films I wanted to mention is the way that he edits certain sequences together, where it sort of conflict between certain things, and we can see different views on the same event. He did it quite well in films like Sherlock Holmes, where he used it to go back and show a sequence in a way that we didn't expect to see it from Sherlock Holmes' point of view. It worked there. Here, it kind of does that, but I just don't see the point in any of that here. So like characters will sit down and work out a plan or something, and it'll do that quick cutting. We're seeing loads of different sides of and it just sort of races through it, and you're like, oh, okay, usually this would be funny, but it's not quite working here, guy. But also there are moments where I feel like he goes about trying to show a sequence in a different way from before, like he did in previous films. A character will come up and be like, oh, how did you get here? And then instead of just saying, oh yeah, we followed you, it'll be like, well, this happened, and then it will cut back to different things about this guy following. you're just showing someone follow. You didn't need that. I didn't need one line of dialogue saying, yeah, we followed you. That's how we got here. You're gonna fucking die. But instead it's like, Guy Ritchie time. And I think that's the main annoyance with his trademark directing traits in this compared to other ones, is that in the other ones they felt necessary. They felt like they were there as a part of the film, as well as being like, oh, okay, this is clearly Guy Ritchie. But here it just feels like they're just there because it was like, well, it needs to feel like it's one of my films, so we're just going to shove all this fucking quick editing and wild camera movements in here. It doesn't really need to be there, but we'll fucking do it because it's got my name on it. That being said, one of the few things I did actually enjoy about the film is its over-the-top visual style. I mean, there are some elements of CGI which are jarringly obvious, and when you can see the CGI, you can really fucking see the CGI. A lot of people just flying around like ragdolls, and you're like, yeah, that's done in a computer, that's not a real person. But the overall style of the film and the visual aesthetic is consistent, and although it's very over the top, very filled and very saturated, it does work, and it doesn't look like a bad film. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it feels like they were like, fuck it, just put that in the film, why the fuck not? And let's talk about the plot that's being told here and all the story that's packed into this one, because it is a relatively simple storyline in terms of its beginning and end. It is basically just King Arthur discovers that he's important, picks up a sword, and then takes down the bad guy. That is the film here. It's an origin story in that respect. But it just seems to fill in so much shit that doesn't get enough time. It just feels so jumbled and all over the place there. It didn't need to have all of that. It could have just been a very, very simple film in terms of plot and story, and I would have been happy with that. I didn't need anything else. But instead the film throws in loads of weird shit with flashbacks and a weird moment where he has to go to some kind of dark world and see in the future, and they're just like, I don't give a shit about any of that. And I think that's probably one of the main problems with the writing in this film in terms of story and in terms of character. It suffers from I don't give a shit-itis in that it does not at any point do anything which makes me care about anything that's happening on screen. Again, I've got to give some credit to the wonderful Charlie Hunnam for just being outstandingly terrible. But the character work here, in terms of the writing of the thing, doesn't help either. I mean, every character is pretty much expendable. All of his side characters, like this little crew that they've got together, could be wiped out at any minute, and I'll be like, I don't give a fuck. In fact, there are a few points where they get killed, and I'm like, wait, am I supposed to give a shit here? And the expendability of the characters gets so bad to the point where a character is literally murdered in front of another character who have a very strong relationship there. And all I could think was, where the fuck is a giant snake? Where is it? That's not how you're supposed to feel in a moment like that. I'm pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to feel there. I got nothing out of this film. I got nothing. But yeah, you could argue that the film doesn't really, give too much of a shit about being a good film. But I don't even necessarily think that is the case here at all. It's very video gamey, and that might have been okay and enjoyable to watch if it didn't think it was so fucking cool all the time. If it didn't take so many moments to stop and say a line or do a look or do an action sequence which it so clearly thought was so cool, but just wasn't. It's like the film equivalent of that kid in school who turned up with wheelies and you're like, oh shit, your shoes have got wheels on them, and he wheels around and you're like, that's fuck. He is a cool kid. He's going places. And then 1 week later, he's still sliding around through the corridors on his wheelies, and you're just like, fuck off, Kevin. Put those fucking shoes away, you stupid. I didn't actually speak like that in primary school. I was the kid with the wheelies. But no, it thinks it's way too cool for its own good. And there's a couple of points at the beginning where I'm like, you know what? I'll let him have it. It didn't necessarily make me laugh, but I'll let you have that quick-witted joke. That's alright, go on. But then you get to the end where King Arthur's had his little fight with Ghost Rider 2.0, and he's sort of building a round table, and they're just all talking to each other about the round table, making very obvious hints to King Arthur. And it's just a leading up to a character saying King Arthur, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Come on, guys, shut the fuck up. I don't know. I think there's definitely an audience for this film. There are people that are going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this, and that is fine. If you enjoyed this film, I'm actually jealous of you. I wanted to enjoy it. I just couldn't get behind it. It is the first of Guy Ritchie's films which is truly, truly stuck out to me as a genuinely bad film. I got nothing from this film. It is a action blockbuster flick which can't even tick the so bad it's good box. Honestly, I'm baffled by that. It has giant snakes and giant elephants, and I can still stand here and say I was actively bored throughout. That just shouldn't be a thing. I cannot wait to never watch this film again. I'm going to go ahead and give King Arthur Legend of the Sword a very low 2 stars. But what about you guys? Are you excited to check out Legend of the Sword? Have you seen it yet? Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Let me know whether you agree with my comments on it. Because, yeah, it's obvious I didn't like it. I just shat on it for about 10 minutes. But if there are things that you loved about it, things that you hate about it, let me know any of that stuff in the comments below. We'll have a big old discussion there. As usual, if you like this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. But until next time, stay beautiful, mother truckers.